Hi, it's Warren Huart here. Hope you're doing marvelously well. I'm with Lucas Pimentel. Did I pronounce that right?
Yeah.
I guess that's a no.
Pimentel.
Pimentel.
Yeah.
Ah, nice.
Yeah.
And you are Brazilian,
Yes, sir.
which means he knows.
Born and raised in the south of Brazil. Lived in the middle of the country for about 10 years before I moved to the States.
When did you move here?
2004.
Oh, so you've been here a little while.
2004.
Yeah, do you like it?
Yeah, well, I used to come here almost every year before
Right.
I moved. It was my vacation place, and also doing tracking stuff, recording stuff was very common for us just to come and record.
Were you playing in
strings.
bands and stuff? Or?
No, I was never a big of a player.
Right.
I dabble on the piano. I play acoustic guitar.
Right.
Done a lot of songwriting, still do. But what brought me here was, well, I set up a little studio in Brazil when I was still there. Done several projects, but it was almost like the decision to come to the States was like I think I hit a wall. I need to learn more. I need to.
Sure.
I was just. I figured that there was not much for me to develop in terms of music production and things to learn. I was still
Right.
young, so I was like, you know what? If I have to make a move, I got to make it now.
Right.
And I'm so glad that I did because although I had so many challenges in the beginning,
Right.
for an immigrant, things are not as easy as they seem sometimes.
Sure.
But I'm forever grateful, to be here to have been adopted by this country.
Right. You and me both.
There you go.
I mean, I come from a country with a phenomenal, rich heritage of rock and roll that mainly does dance music.
Very true.
I took my family back there when my son was 18 months old. I went back there and we get in the cab from Heathrow and he puts on Radio 1 and it's like, unch, 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 and it's great. But then after about 20 minutes driving, I'm like, I haven't heard a guitar. And that's fine. But, for most Americans, when they think of, England, they think of the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, and the Who, and Led Zeppelin, and Pink Floyd, David Bowie, all of these amazing...
I can't relate to that because, thinking of Brazil, especially among musicians and songwriters, when I talk about Brazil, the first thing that they ask me is, Tom Jobim, the bossa nova, all the jazzy stuff,
the total sound of our...
and then
was he Cuban? He's Cuban.
And then Sergio Mendes, Djavan,
Right.
and if you turn on the radio, you're not gonna hear that stuff.
Right.
It's and for me, and talking about radio, that was my playground since I was a little kid.
Right. Oh, you were saying this.
Yeah.
Tell me a bit more about your upbringing in radio.
My dad and my uncles, they both worked in radio stations, in the late 60s, early 70s.
Wonderful.
And that was like the golden age for, the music. But at the same time, Brazil was under a military regime. It was the dictatorship. So there are some funny factors, sad, but at the same time they're funny. But so I was born in 76. I remember first when I was 3 or 4, my dad was taking me to the radio station, and I'd be around 16,000 records.
Wow.
It was like a candy store, and for me that was my playground.
Sure.
My dad never told me, "Hey, you can't listen to this, you can't listen to that."
Right.
We come from very traditional Christian family in the south of Brazil, where the majority of people that migrated to the south of Brazil are from Germany, Italy. They're a lot of traditional religion,
Sure.
strings, and at the same time, my dad was just like, "Hey, there's good and bad music.
Right.
There's positive and negative.
Right.
Listen to whatever you want and take the positive and use the positive to allow that to influence you." And that was awesome, man, because I grew up listening to all kinds of stuff.
Fantastic.
No restrictions. it was funny because, talking about dictatorship, people have no idea of how crazy that can get. There were records that would arrive to the station sealed from the manufacturer. And when you open the record, some of the tracks were already scratched. So we couldn't even listen to it to play on the radio. So, years later, I was able to listen to the songs when that thing finally, fell.
But off the top of your head, can you think of any one song maybe that was...
Mostly Brazilian songs because of the thematic and the language they were using, like, kind of rebellious towards the government.
Right.
And most records were rock and roll.
Right.
Because they had to complain, to stand up for something.
Sure.
And it was sad because I was a kid. I was like, why did they do that to the record? It looks so clean, all that, and all scratched.
Oh.
And but that was, those years for me were decisive to shape me to where I'm at right now. In terms of learning how to accept all kinds of genres, to work with whoever is willing to make good music.
Right.
And whoever is willing to make positive music.
Right.
That for me is the divisor. When you go from good music and positive to negative and just noise.
Right.
And my work, noise might work for many people. It just never worked for me.
Right. Well, Brazil has a rich heritage of melody and harmony and, of course, rhythm. You think of Brazil, like you were saying, the stereotypes, but it's a good stereotype. A lot of incredible polyrhythms and just music that makes you move.
And it's funny because now when I go back and when I exchange music with friends that are making music in Brazil, they're all over the place. They play all kinds of genres, and what they have to do to make up for the lack of infrastructure or ability to buy nice gear or great instruments. So you really have to, and that was a challenge for me too when I started recording my own stuff.
Right.
Because, I set up this little, had an audio interface, an old 5500 Mac computer.
Right.
It was one of the first, like, iMac.
Sure, I remember them, yeah.
And I thought that was like a beast, It's like a screen, like 15-inch screen. And I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Logic went way before
Sure.
Apple came in the picture, when it was still developed by Imagic over in Germany. And for me, when I first recorded my voice and I played back, and I was in my bedroom and I could hear that, and it's like, hey, and then you start tweaking, adding a little, reverb, a little dynamics and stuff. This sounds good. For me, that was incredible. But it was the fact that we didn't have much resources available.
Sure.
I had to learn how to work with whatever I had in hands. And
I preach it all the time. Creativity trumps equipment every single time. And all the great records that we grew up listening to, I mean, Jeff Emmerich, when he was working with the Beatles, was 19 or 20 years old. So he wasn't like some massive college graduate, went to whatever university to learn. He just went in there and went, oh, put this mic here. That sounds good. It was none of that kind of like, but the book says. I mean, I've worked in so many studios about you where the assistant is telling me I'm doing it wrong.
Oh. Yeah,
it's like, okay, I'm sorry.
I'm sure you've heard that way more than I did, because you've been around and you worked in way more studios than I did. But
I didn't come up in a studio system. I'm the same as Zach. I just built a studio and started recording.
Trust me, when I first stepped into a big studio, I was like, okay, this is a studio.
Right.
Because for me, a studio was the radio studio. So we had Studio A and Studio B.
Right.
Studio A is whatever is on air.
Right.
Studio B is when you're doing pre-production, when you're doing all the commercial and all the stuff.
Sure.
That's where I spent most of my time. Playing with tapes and recording and making noises and asking my dad to come in. It's like, hey, why don't you, do this? And then that's when I first discovered echo, with the tape. It was like, so if I press this button, it sounds cool. There's echo here. It was just, I had fun. Wonderful. Learning, and I still do have fun learning, because it's a never-ending learning experience.
Right.
Learning mode, the moment that any engineer, any producer, songwriter, anyone that works with art decides to press the off button on learning,
Sure.
then forget it. You're
Yeah.
screwed. Forget it. There's nowhere to go, because and there's no standard for who you're gonna learn from.
I agree entirely.
We're learning from kids. We're learning
17-year-old kid comes in and tells me something. Try putting the mic over here. Can you distort it? And can you put this on it? Like, I do it and I'm like, wow, I just learned something.
and I think it just makes it. I think it makes life more enjoyable.
Absolutely.
You know, you're always.
If you're closed-minded, it's exhausting.
And draws people, away from you whenever you are the master. You are the one who knows. That's the final word is that guy over there. You might get some. You get work, but I think when you're the opposite, when you're always open,
Sure.
you draw people closer to you.
I
People
agree.
want to be around someone that they know that it's approachable, that it's just like
Absolutely.
them. I've been there. Oh, that's nice that you know this. And if you learned in a formal setting, like if you went to school and I mean, it's amazing. There are so many audio engineering schools and recording schools. I think that's a great start for so many that have no clue of what they're doing.
Right.
But so are we. We still don't have a clue of what we're doing. Every new project it's new.
I agree.
New possibilities. So I think if you leave school thinking that you're done learning because you have a degree, then you're done.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a great analogy for anything in life.
I've been getting a lot of stuff to mix, and I'm not. I never had any formal education on any of this stuff.
Right. Good.
So for me, I go by this, the way it sounds,
Right.
and you can tell when something was tracked, by just because if you've been around, an API console, an Eve console, an SSL console, Trident console, there's certain characteristics, sonic characteristics that you can tell. This is tracked with that,
Right.
and for me, I try not to be invasive
Sure.
on the source. There's like a commercial kind of a standard that we try to keep,
Right.
because most artists when they go after you, they want their song to sound someone. They always
Sure.
have a reference. We all do.
Sure.
I want my guitars to sound like this. I want my piano to sound like David Foster. It's like,
Right. Right.
can I play like Foster? That's a whole different game. But anyway, so I think that the trying to preserve the source
Sure.
as pure and as close as possible to its original sonic signature.
Right.
That's usually my goal. It's not because I have a ton of plugins at my disposal,
Right.
like I use a lot. Not much, but it seems like I use a lot of plugins. But I think that the less invasive that you become as a mix engineer, I think the more you allow the song to breathe, the more you allow the
I agree
original
with you 100%,
DNA,
yeah.
the original DNA to
Yeah.
show up. I don't want to have my signature on the mix. And it's funny because I've been doing a lot of independent, a lot of freelance work for certain companies, certain studios where I'm surrendering my publishing rights, my image, and all that stuff because I'm a freelancer.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why studios are saving a lot of money these days. But you do a freelance work, you get paid, walk away. They don't have to pay you anything. If they sell 1 million copies, or if the
Sure.
the movie goes, gets an Oscar,
Right.
you're on your own. But it's work. So
Yeah.
for me, I think the fact that I can just touch a song and preserve as much as I can from that performance, that interpretation, and have like a perfect image of what happened, just adding or subtracting just enough to preserve the integrity of the song, I think then I've done a good job. I don't want people to say, "Oh, this was mixed by that. It sounds just like his mix."
Sure.
Because then I'm putting myself in front of the artist.
Sure.
If I mean that's just the way I've seen other engineers, some guys that I really respect. You know, you try to be invisible, but you still make things noticeable.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because I think there's actually two of the famous quote unquote mixers that I know, like the half dozen big guys that charge like as much to mix a song as most artists charge to make an album. Half of them have a sound and half of them don't. It's interesting. Actually, probably like 75% of them have a sound. I'm not going to name all the names, but there's a couple of guys that people like. You know, Manny Marroquin doesn't really have a sound. He's mixed a couple of songs for me, and they actually come back pretty close to my mix, but just a little better. Mark Endert, same thing. Comes back like my mix, but better. And I kind of respect that. And then the other guys that I've used tends to come back either absolutely amazing and oh my goodness, how did you do that? Or just like, wow, you've lost the essence, you know, because they have a thing they do. Now, that may be right, or there's no right or wrong in that. I don't want to be critical of it.
It might work,
but I
for
do respect the
projects.
Manny, Mark, and kind of way of doing it because I feel like it's like what you're talking about. It's like they respect your art and they don't have a system there's maybe as such, and they tend to. If you have that attitude, it's pervasive when you work with an artist because then an artist feels like they're able to express themselves because they don't feel like they're being stuck into a box, and it's always an interesting dynamic because our job when we're producing artists is to get amazing performances out of them. And that is making them feel comfortable and relaxed and letting them feel like they've got all the time in the world to get it right, at the same time maintaining their focus. So it's always like a balance because I don't want them to spend 5 hours in there and blow their voice out and do 15 takes of something they don't need to do. So I need to maintain their confidence, need to keep it fun and relaxed.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, let them feel like they can do whatever they want. It's always a bit of a skill, you know, to balance.
And every project is a whole different game. I mean, it's we have to be a little, we have to have that psychologist side.
Sure.
You know, I think we all have a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Because if you don't understand, you know, if you don't, you know, invest, a little time with the artist, trying to learn a little bit from them and see
Sure.
where they're coming from. There are certain buttons that if you press in the wrong time, you'll kill the session.
Sure.
And I think that when we invest that extra time getting to know and just being playful and just like, you know, knowing where you can push their buttons and when,
Sure.
so you can maybe just demand something and just be more energetic and have more passion about it, and just kind of, you know, maybe throw a couple of, you know, whatever cursing here and there,
Right.
but that will shake them off. It's like, yeah, I can do this.
Right.
You know, so you're always analyzing your artists and trying to understand what's best for them,
Of course.
and yet convincing them that they can do that.
Right.
It's an art. It's another art.
Yeah, I agree entirely. For me, I just remember being an artist. And I remember being produced. And I remember the ones that I liked are the ones I didn't. And it had nothing to do with the credits. I'd walk in there blown away by the gold records and the platinum records or the Grammys or whatever of some producers. But that would be my initial week. If I was doing a 6-week album like I would do in the 90s as a musician, by week 2, all of that stuff was meaningless. I either felt like they were there to inspire creativity or they were there sometimes just to get paid. It was very, you know, in the 90s in particular where record sales were so massive and it was just playing a numbers game. You know, labels would put out, I don't know, I'm going to make up numbers, like 40 albums and 1 or 2 would recoup but make enough money to pay for the rest. It was a different time. You know, you could have an album that sold 10 million copies and then 20 albums that sold less than 50. But that 10 million copies made so much money that it paid for everything else. And these days, doing what we do, we have to put our heart and soul into every single artist because there's no more residual income like that for anybody. You know, unless you're one of 2 or 3 people that have every top 10 single.
Absolutely. Absolutely, and that's one of the reasons why I've, easily I had to learn how to not to say no
Right.
to work.
Right.
There's a friend of mine used to say, sometimes you make music, sometimes you make money, and rarely you make both.
Right.
And I think that, I mean, to an instance, that's very true. But the fact that we love what we do, it kind of puts money into a different perspective.
Yeah. I always my analogy on that one I always say is do what you love and make money as a consequence.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I feel like when people say to me, I get asked all the time, what's your favorite session? Who was your favorite artist to work with? What was the best thing you've ever recorded? I have absolutely no idea, because it doesn't always equate that just because I recorded a big song by The Fray or something, #1 single. I had a really great time doing that. I also had a really stressful time doing that. I've had times when I've had so much fun that on certain sessions by an artist nobody's ever heard of, that I might one day wake up and go, it's my favorite session ever. But it may have sold 500 copies. It's just putting ourselves into our project and loving what we do. And to be honest, the most talented people I work with, and still work with, aren't always that successful.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I think success can be measured by how happy you are in life, how content you are,
Right.
And that's being successful to me. How I can put a smile on my face as I walk into a studio, having no clue of what's going to happen,
Right.
and walking away and just laughing and having fun too, because hey, we hit a couple walls during the session, but it's all
Sure.
good. I'm ready for the next one.
Yeah.
And some of the most memorable sessions that for me were actually the ones that I didn't do anything on.
Right.
I was in engineering. I was in assisting. I wasn't producing. I was a guest. It was a friend of mine. It's like I thought, hey, why don't you come by? We need maybe a couple extra years just to
Right.
listen to what's going on. Yeah, cool. I wasn't getting paid a dime, and I spent 12 hours in the studio.
Right.
But I had fun.
That's great.
And the learning experience from that session is priceless.
I agree.
So actually, I keep calling some of them up until this day. Some of my friends is like, you know what? Remember that session? How much do I owe you for that session?
That's wonderful.
Just because I was there, I was able to witness some amazing music making, and I didn't have to pay for it.
That's great.
And some of the things that I witnessed the engineer doing,
Sure.
that I witnessed the way that the conductor approached the orchestra, or the way that they spent so much time in working on proximity effect on the drum set.
Right.
That for me is priceless.
Mm-hmm.
That's an experience that I can never repay you. Maybe by inviting you to a session.
Yeah, I hear you. I may have said this in another interview with somebody, so for those watching, hearing me repeat myself, I apologize. But just before Phil Ramone died, I was in Capitol with Jack Douglas. Jack and I were working with Al Schmidt, and we were mixing a song with Al. And Phil Ramone, it was only a few weeks before he died, was in doing an orchestra date in A or whatever. I don't know which room he was in. So we go in there because Jack and Phil worked with each other in New York in the early 70s, and they're friends. So I go in there, and I don't think anybody knew he was dying of cancer at that point. But I remember going in there and just sort of walking in, sitting in the back, and my hairs are standing on end. My overriding memory is like, I walk in and he has this chart open like this, and he has the chart, and he's got the string arranger next to him, and he's got like a pencil, and he's like going like this, and he's making a note, and he's like drawing in something, and he's like pointing and going blah blah blah, melody like this, and I just was like almost in tears, because I was like, I'm not going to swear, I was like, that's a freaking producer, you know what I mean? He's in there, he's working with the arranger, and he was like a few weeks away from dying, and he had cancer, and he was just like, and I'm not going to be critical of like just building a track in a laptop, because there's value in that, but just to see that there still was guys that could read and write music and could talk to string arrangers and work on the fly and still have that passion, especially a few weeks before, at that point nobody knew, but it was about to die. It just, and then of course, I bought his book, and most of his book is talking about working with Sinatra and Nat King Cole and Natalie Cole, and just talking about the dynamics, about making them feel comfortable and getting great performances out of them, and trying to teach his assistants and engineers how to interact with them so that they get the best results. And it's a wonderful book on, like you were saying earlier, psychology of musicians.
Very true. Very true.
It's just great to... I'll always remember that, just because it was just a few minutes of my life, but just like you're saying, just to be around that and to see that is wonderful. Can I get you to show us a little bit of what you do?
Sure.
We have a look at your session here.
Well, one of the projects that I'm working right now is for a Brazilian singer, and it's a quite amazing project because it has all the elements that I've been working for the past years. I've been doing a lot of editing and pre-mixing for orchestra, music for picture.
Right.
And it's amazing. And even though I don't get credit for most of this stuff because of the nature of being a freelancer, which I'm not going to complain about it, because that's when you learn that having credit doesn't really mean a lot if you enjoy the process.
Right.
And I even got paid to do that, so it's
getting paid is a good start.
So this has the orchestra on this one was recorded in Prague, which is
beautiful.
A lot of artists are using Prague because it's not only the cost is way more friendly than doing it here in LA. But there's a sound to it. It's a more dramatic, epic. There's some elements, and they recorded in a theater, especially this project, and it just sounds great. And then the rhythm track was tracked in Nashville. Nice. Where the musicianship is just incredible. Working with Nashville Cats is just I'm not complaining. I love all the LA guys, but it's just a different vibe. So this is a Christian record. The strings arrangement were done by a good friend of mine, Enoch Thomas, and which we're tracking in a couple weeks. We're going to be tracking some stuff at United Recording, some live orchestra.
Oh, wonderful.
Maybe you guys stop by.
That'd be great. I'd love to.
So let me open up this. And this is my to-go thing, just the laptop. I just got this, the UAD Octocard.
Oh, nice.
So I can open as many plugins I want. I don't use a lot of it, but I like having extra juice if I run into, And
the UAD, how much was that, if you don't mind me asking?
This one is $14.99, but like this month I got it, and then because I already own the plugins that came with it, they had a $997 bonus. They gave me a voucher because I already own that. So, and this month they had the sale, which was like 50-60% off in all plugins. So this will end up being free if I consider
what you got for it.
What I got for it. So, and I like their stuff. It works. I'm not saying that this is better or what. It works for me. This is a 45-piece string session. I'm not doing much in terms of EQ or anything. I try to preserve the room mics as much as I can because that's the performance you want to hear. And then if I have the score, I like watching where maybe there's a viola run or something. It gets a little more. to have the track piano.
That's wonderful, wonderful. Now, Lucas is going to play the piano part that he's putting on the strings. He wanted us to hear it, so let's play. That is a beautiful piece of music. Very beautiful piece of music. Thanks for taking the time. I really appreciate this.
Thanks for having me, man. It's a pleasure. I have to give you credit for two things in social media. Oh, we met through Instagram, right?
Of course.
First thing that you were probably one of the first guys that I started following.
Right.
And one thing that I noticed was that you were always positive in everything you posted, and excited about every new project and all that. Well, maybe the three things then. That's one. Second one is cheers. I'm not British, and I say cheers probably more than you do now, especially, well, at least on social media.
Right.
Every post, and I just figured that was so cool because it's a way of wrapping up things. There's like and it's polite, it's cool, and all that.
Right.
So for all of you that happen to follow me on Instagram, the whole cheers thing is not my idea. I copied him.
I'm going to reintroduce it in mine now. Have a marvelous day. Cheers.
Oh yeah, marvelous. Well, I think I probably complimented you with marvelous a couple times. But and then the third one, which I think it's the most important that I've learned from you, and you probably didn't even do that on consciously, just because that's the way you are. The way that you engage to people that post. That make comments to your posts. Right. I think if you want to be in social media, I'm telling to all of you that want to be in social media, and you think you're too cool to reply to people that make valid comments,
right?
Then you shouldn't be in social media. Maybe you should rethink that, because you're being anti-social. Being in social media and not being social, it doesn't really go together.
Right.
So I really admire you for with all the credits you have, with all the coolest people that you know in the business, and for the talent that you are, you take time to engage, and you take time to do this. Produce like a pro. I told you when I first watched the first episode, I said, finally, someone took the time to do this in a way that people are not gonna get bored to death, or they're not just feel like you were right there and they're right here. And I'm not getting paid to say that.
No, but I hear you. You said it earlier, though. We're all still learning. We're all still learning, and just to think that I know more than somebody else is pretty funny. I'm still learning. I just learned a lot just from you over the last half an hour. Coming to the studio, I found some pieces of equipment that I'm probably going to purchase, because here I am. I'm in a studio by a guy that's 25 years old, and I've learned some stuff from him. I'm 26 now. And what, you're 23? Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the point, is like we're always learning. I think that, we talked about earlier, like 19-year-old guys making the best-selling records ever. And then, of course, the same is true that there's guys in their 80s and 90s that are still doing music that
absolutely
are insanely talented, have got all that acquired knowledge. So the point is we're always learning. You said it earlier, I agree with it entirely. And what I really want to do, because what I've always wanted was to feel part of something. You know what I mean? I want to be part of a community. And the reason why I like to engage people in the comments is because, and it's a lot of work. I get on average like 100 comments a day now. And it was 50 last month, and it's 100 this month. But what I like is that I learn from them. Somebody was asking about amp modelers and VST plugins, and I didn't really know because I don't use many VST plugins. I'm still learning stuff. And then somebody said, there's a new plugin or newish plugin called Bias. Do you know that one? It's an amp modeler. I went online, I read about it. It looks amazing. So that's what just was happening yesterday. So somebody's commenting, then somebody else is responding, and it's all positive. Nobody's putting somebody else down for not knowing. But it's a sense of community, because this is not a competition.
Absolutely.
The only place we've got to go to is death. I'm not trying to get there the quickest. This is a journey. Life is a journey, and I want to enjoy this. And we're all, we both believe in God, and this is very important. But the point is like we are all in this together.
Absolutely.
We're all one consciousness, and let's all help each other out. There's enough success in this world for everybody to do well, and I love we can support each other. And I'm very impressed with you. I mean, I have a good Instagram page, but you have an amazing Instagram page. He's like the king of Instagram.
No.
Don't be so humble.
No, it's a fun thing.
I feel like I discovered you before you discovered me, so I don't know. Was it the chicken or the egg?
There's so many cool guys that I got to know and
right.
to meet through Instagram. And it's just an amazing experience. I feel like it's more, you can follow people that really have the same interests as you, as opposed to some other social media places. And I just enjoy this. I feel like I like them to be part of what I'm doing on a daily basis.
Right.
Not because I want to impress them, but because I'm so excited and so passionate about this life that I chose to do, and that I want that kid that's probably starting in his bedroom just the way that I started.
Right.
Hey, I didn't grow too much. I'm in an attic right now. So from a bedroom to an attic, that's not bad. It's exciting to feel like you can be a positive influence to somebody else.
Right.
Especially this new generation that it's so, it gets so much information. Right. And don't really know where to go with it.
Right.
There's just so much possibilities in the industry, and and of course you want to find out what's the fastest way to get to success. And if you're looking for that success for me, then don't follow me. Success is a process. It's a journey. Yeah. It's not a destination. And I think we enjoy being on that process. Yeah. And and the little things, we cheer each other up if we get a new cable. I
mean, I honestly believe what I'm about to say. I honestly believe that if you do all the necessary steps and you continue to learn and you keep a positive attitude and you work hard, and I don't just mean like spending 5 hours on a snare sound. I mean like work focused in a really great way, that you can make a living doing this. Even Absolutely. On a local peripheral level in your hometown. I always give all the assistants and the interns and stuff that work with me or for me or around me, I always give them the same advice. And the ones that succeed, and not everybody takes the advice, but I work so much for free for so many years, and I still continue to do stuff at a reduced price, and I do things that I'm passionate about, like you're doing.
Same here.
Yeah, you do your passionate stuff and stuff, because everything that we do is a calling card. So I can't just go, I'm only going to put effort into the $10,000 session, not into the $500 session. I can't do that, because I have to realize that the $500 local band session is going to be just as important as the $10,000, blah, 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 famous record session, because that's still going to be heard by people, and probably, honestly, by more people that are client-based than, because there's a lot more people with small budgets than there is with big budgets. And a lot of guys say to me that have large resumes, there's no work out there. And I'm like, there's tons of work out there. There's so many people that want to work.
Maybe your ideal of work, it's very little, but there's plenty of work. And I love working with the local artists. Yeah. They bring so much energy. There's so many talented people. I mean, like I said, there's no work. Are you kidding me? Yeah. We're in LA. I mean, you go around the block and you find a new band, a new singer.
A studio like this in Silver Lake.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So it's, I feel that we're very blessed, and it's keeping a positive attitude will take you way further than just trying to be too perfect or trying to choose the right path.
It's really just about doing your craft. And I know it's so difficult at times. There was times where I was scraping to pay my rent, and I was selling equipment to pay my rent. I've sold guitars to pay my rent. I've done all of those things, to do, but I carried on doing it. And it's tough. I know it is, but like you, it's my passion, and I feel blessed. I feel blessed that I had to go through those kind of peaks and troughs to be able to get to
It
a place.
shapes who you are, and it makes you grow. If
Right.
anything, all the ups and downs, it makes you see life from a different perspective.
Right.
So sometimes you become less dramatic about the downsides, because
Sure.
hey, it's not that bad.
Right.
I can see people that would love to be where I'm at right now,
Right.
as I'm looking up to the other guy, and I want to learn, and I want to be where he's at right now.
Right. All right. That is a wonderful way to finish. Thank you ever so much.
Thanks
I
for
really
having me,
appreciate it. As ever, please go to producelikeapro.com and sign up for the email list, and you get a whole bunch of free stuff. And please subscribe. Thank you ever so much for watching. Thank you once again.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot.